Look, y'all, I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to say it. Chess endgames are hard. And for that reason, I put together an over 28-hour chess endgames course meant to get you into the top 1% of endgame players, and I'm giving out a 30% off discount code for the rest of this month. That discount code is chess25. Go down to the link below in the description or the pinned comment, plug in the discount code chess25, and you will receive 30% off on your purchase, no matter how many courses you decide to get, including the Mastering Chess Endgames course. I put a lot of work into this one, and I hope y'all enjoy it. Really do. And yeah, I mean, chess endgames are hard. I mean, chess endgames and tactics, those are the top two things that players should be focusing on in terms of overall chess improvement. Again, for those of you that get it, hope you enjoy it. Let's now head over to the video. If you play the French defense, or if you're considering playing the French, this is the #1 line that I recommend you memorize. And of course, there's a bunch that you can memorize that would help you in your game. But if you had to memorize one, I would memorize this one, because all of the moves that I'm about to show you from the white side are the most popular moves in online chess. Let's take a look. So the French defense is against the move of e4. It can transpose, like if you see the move of d4 and you play e6, then you could see e4, but the traditional move order is e4 and then d4. We're playing e6, prepping the move of d5, and in online chess, on Lee Chess, all ratings, all time controls, all time, the most common move is e5. e5, right? Pushing that guy. And against this, we're going to play the move of c5. And this is a great structure for us. We're putting a lot of pressure on d4. When I was growing up, my chess coach told me that the French defense was once illegal in tournament play. I don't know if that's true, so you guys can go fact check that. But that's what I've heard. I've heard that at one point in time, the French defense was illegal because it was so strong. But I mean, this is really hard for white to deal with. I've always hated this for white, personally. This position here, I could not stand it for the white side. And guess what? I still can't, because black is able to put so much pressure on this pawn on d4. And if white ever takes, the pawn on e5 is extended, it's weakened, and this pawn on d5 is in a world of its own, creating space and a presence right in the center of the board. So the most common move white plays is c3. That's a good idea. Form that pawn chain. Right? You don't want to take back with a bishop or a knight. You want to take back with a pawn so that e5 is still strong. What are we doing here? Knight c6 and queen b6. Bishop d3 here. I'm showing you all the most popular moves. Okay, so here we're going to take on d4. Okay, and we're actually not going to take again. We'll go over that, why not, in just a moment. But in terms of the memorization line, we're playing bishop d7. We're now going to take on d4 now that our bishop is here on d7. Very important, which again, we'll cover that. And if, yeah, knight takes d4, we're going to take back with the queen. Here we're just better. Black's just better. Black has a better position. With knight c3, a6 is my recommendation. And with queen e2, we have rook c8, activating that rook. I mean, it's the only open file. Let's put the rook on it. And with king to h1, bishop c5, and with f4, I'm recommending knight h6. Okay, I'm recommending an 18 move line in terms of memorization. What are the chances that you're going to see all 18 moves? Close to zero. You will probably never see all 18 moves in your entire life. However, you might, and there's a very good chance that you'll have hundreds of games, in which case, you know, a good chunk of those 18 moves is played over and over and over again. So knowing the whole 18 moves helps with, you know, that, depending on how far your opponent plays into the line. And it also just helps you with ideas. These are very foundational French defense type structures and ideas. Knight h6 looks to eye up that square on f5, which white did weaken by pushing their e-pawn all the way up here. This pawn can just never see f5 again. There's no way around that. The only other white pawn that could ever see it is the g-pawn. But are you really going to play g4? Probably not. Okay, the most common move we see in online chess is bishop d2. And here, you can actually play knight g4. You can put your knight on that square. Why is that? Because if the queen takes, which is what we usually see, we can capture on d3, take off the hanging piece. If white takes on g7, we play rook f8. We're sitting at even material, but we have the bishop pair, and we have great activity here. I mean, our queen is on d3. We have an active bishop on c5. This pawn on d5 is a passed pawn, a protected passed pawn. I know it's on our side of the board, but there's no white pawn that can ever stop this guy again. And If rook a d1 here, queen g6 is what I recommend. And by the way, if the queen takes, which is, I mean, the best move white has, I actually don't recommend taking towards the center. I know that sounds strange, but going into an endgame like this, white now has a 2-on-1, and this is something that I talk about in my chess endgames course, over 20 hours of content meant to help you get into the top 1% of chess players. But, I mean, taking towards the center here, yeah, white has this 2-on-1, and at some point, practically speaking, they're going to be able to kind of outflank you in that way. So I recommend playing f takes g6. Now there's no way for white to easily outflank you. There's no 2-on-1 anywhere. Of course, this pawn on f4 can see the end of the board. If it had eyes, it could see all the way down. But we do have pawns on g6 and e6, both looking at its next step. On top of that, the rook gets activated. We're looking at f4 again. We do have that protected pass pawn. And this position here, it's not crushing for us. It's about -1 for black. But it's very pleasant. It's a pleasant position, pleasant game. We can look towards bishop c6 and d4, expanding our passed pawn, improving the activity of this bishop. We can always activate our king at some point as well. And yeah, it's just a very comfortable game. We have the bishop pair, and we're in a great spot. So all that said, let's go back to the start here. Let's go through that line one more time. We're playing the French. We're playing d5. We're playing c5 there. We're adding more pressure. We're adding more pressure against that pawn on d4. If white plays bishop d3, we're taking it, but then playing bishop d7 before we take on d4. We can capture back. We're actually not going to take on e5 here against white's most common knight c3. We're going to play a6. And then with queen e2, we can play rook to c8. Active move. Bishop c5. I mean, why not? And if we see f4, knight h6. Very common idea. Looking at f5, looking towards g4 as well. And you know, this is a hard position for white to think through. I mean, what are you going to do here? If you play h3 preventing knight g4, then knight f5 is something that we could look at, looking towards the weak g3 square. If we see bishop to d2, knight g4, and again, if you take, we have queen takes d3, right? Rook f8, we're going to trade off queens there, and we have the superior endgame. So that's the line that I recommend you memorize. Again, what are the chances you're going to get all 18 moves? Probably not very high, but there is a good chance you'll get to move 12. There is a good chance you'll get to move 13 or move 10 or whatever it may be. And these ideas overall will help you in your overall play in the French defense structures. Now, let's just cover some quick ideas here, okay? c3 is very important here for white. If white wants to have an advantage of any kind, they got to play c3, because if you play knight f3, we take, and you don't have a pawn taking back, which makes e5 by definition weaker. Pawns are great defenders because they're expendable. If you take back with the queen here, we have knight c6. If you take with the knight, we could play knight c6. We could even play knight e7 and look to prep either knight c6 with a knight defending it, or even look towards knight g6. But as you can see, this e5 pawn is the target. And if you play f4, fine. e5 has been strengthened, but then this diagonal from b6/c5 all the way down to g1 is very weak, and this is in our favor, not white's. So with c5, white there's got to play c3, and that's what we see the most often. Here we're playing knight c6 and queen b6, and by playing bishop d3, white is setting up a very common trap. Okay, I believe it's pronounced the Milner-Berry gambit. I'm actually not sure how to pronounce that first name. You guys will have to let me know. Milner-Berry gambit. But with queen b6, right? You know, bishop d3 there, solid move. Solid move. Okay, I do think a3 is the best move, in all honesty. I would make an argument for that, and you know, that performs much better, and it's played much more often at the grandmaster level. However, if you do see bishop d3, which we see all the time in online chess, okay, you don't want to take this guy. Right, and again, if white takes on c5 there, then e5 is weaker. Right, if queen to c2, I like this idea of going from e7 to g6 and putting pressure on e5. It's just not the right moment because of b4 and our bishop's trapped. That's not good. So if you do see queen c2 in that kind of position, you can play multiple moves, including a5, preventing that from even being a thought. Queen c7 is something the engine looks at, just rerouting. You could also play f6. If you like this kind of idea, you can go for that. Of course, e5 is no longer going to be a weakness because the e5 pawn is not there anymore. However, you do get a couple of benefits. Number one, you get quick development. Your knight jumps into the game quickly, looking towards e4, looking towards g4. And if you look at the center files, the e file and the d file, you have 2 pawns. White has none. I know that we're sitting at even material, but you have complete central control. And as this game goes on, you're going to be able to steamroll white in a lot of spots because of that. So with queen b6, we see bishop d3 all the time. And yes, you're taking the first time, but you're not going to take with the knight, because with your bishop not on d7 yet, knight takes d4 can be played, and then bishop e5. And yeah, time to go home. Okay, the queen's just done. So you want to put the bishop here on d7 first, and white here, you know, in my opinion, really does need to think about this pawn on d4. Now, of course, bishop e3 isn't good because the pawn on b2 is a major target there that our queen can fly in and take while attacking the rook as well. This is another reason why having that queen on b6 is so dangerous, okay? You know, again, we're playing bishop to d7 first. We're still eyeing d4. We're eyeing b2, making that bishop a babysitter for that pawn. But I would recommend bishop e2 there. But is it the most common move? No. White often castles. White probably is forgetting that our bishop's on d7, and in that case, okay. I mean, if you want to play bishop to b5, go ahead. Right? If you really want to do that, we will take on d1 in a heartbeat, and we will go into the endgame up material. And if knight c3, again, I'm recommending a6. Now, queen takes e5. I love being up 2 pawns. The problem is that we're just down in development. I mean, we're down a lot. We have our queen out. Our opponent has 4 pieces developed. We run into rook to e1, and the engine move is queen to b8. But then we run into knight takes d5. We're still technically slightly better here, okay, at first glance, according to the engine. But it's not fun. And practically, I don't know. I'm not loving it, okay? It's not like a super fun position. And if we play queen d6 defending the pawn, well, we get kicked. Now, taking the knight, not a great idea. White takes with check, and our king has to run somewhere. If we run to the best square possible, right, with queen b6 there, we get attacked. Okay, now, there's really no other good square for the queen to go to. If we go to b6 again, we get attacked. If queen a5, here, white could attack us again. And they could even go for a perpetual kind of idea there, or push for the win, but it's not a ton of fun. So again, with knight c3, you're up 1 pawn. If you're up 1 pawn or up 2 pawns, both give you a winning position in nearly all chess games. So both are a win. Play a6, you're up material. From this point, you can look to trade, you can look to make the game boring, and you got to develop your pieces. Now, look, if bishop e3 now, okay, yeah, we'll take. We're good. There's no, tactical ideas here, because if you play rook e1, you're not attacking our queen. In fact, at this point, we could just develop our knight, and we have d5 covered. So you can move the bishop anywhere you want. You're not taking anything with the bishop. You're not putting us in check. No matter where you put that bishop, our queen just runs. And again, d5 is covered by our knight. We're rock solid there. So queen e2 is what we see the most often. Rook to c8. I mean, that's just a foundational French defense, CARO-KANN defense type move. White plays king h1 quite a bit. It's a solid idea, looking to push down that f-pawn. But bishop c5. Let's play actively there. If we do see bishop to e3, we can take on e5. The bishop is protected, which is great. And if f4, knight h6. And this is the kind of position here. If you see f5, right? Okay, fine. Right? We could take on f5, and that gives us a good position. We're winning there. But better is knight to g4, looking towards the very weak f2 square, right? Let's say white takes on e6. Okay, we'll take back. We'll take back with our bishop, right? We'll take back. That's fine. We're still looking at knight f2. We're still looking at that. I mean, and the king doesn't want to move into that kind of check. The rook doesn't want to have to give up the exchange, although that might be the best thing that white has in some aspects once we get our knight on f2. Now, if we do see something like knight to d1 here preventing our knight from getting in, what do we have here? Knight takes h2. Beautiful move. We're attacking the rook, and if the king takes, okay, queen h4, the game's over. So this idea of knight to g4 is a strong one. Again, bringing that knight into f2. The best thing you could do at that point is give up the exchange, which isn't great for white. And if you stop us from going in there, let's say you take first and then play knight d1 or whatever, okay, we take on h2. You can't even take back without getting checkmated Our knight could always come back to g4. It's still looking at the rook. And we're completely winning that. So all that said, right, f5 there, not a great move for white because we're able to play knight to g4 and our queen protects our knight. Now, with bishop to d2, we're still able to play it, but white can take, which still gives us an advantage. We're able to take off the hanging light squared bishop, but it's not crushing like the other line was. But yeah, we trade queens here. We take away from the center to stop white from being able to outflank our structure. We activate our rook. We have a protected pass pawn, bishops that can activate nicely. And yeah, we're in a great spot. So again, that main line there is what I recommend you memorize. The other stuff was more just giving explanations and ideas. And hey, you can memorize those too, by all means. But just start out by memorizing the following line where you're playing bishop d7 first, and then you're looking to take on d4 if able. Yeah, a6 there is important. You're going to develop, right? We got a lot of arrows all over the place here, but you're going to really play actively here. Knight g4, take on d3, bring the rook over, trade queens, and you are in a preferred endgame. And just before we finish this video out, okay, again, here, okay, so we play this move of c takes d4. We take. When white takes back, we're not taking with the knight right away. Again, we got to play bishop d7 first, because if we do this, we have just fallen into a trap that thousands of others have before. And yeah, I mean, we're just losing our queen. So don't go into that. Bishop d7 first, and then continue with your plan. And keep in mind as well, I mean, you know, there are other ideas too, like knight b4 in some spots could be a good idea. Like if you see bishop to c2 here, okay, that's protected, but hey, let's go pester that bishop a little bit. Let's go see what that guy's doing. Let's see what that bishop wants to do. If you go to b3, I don't really want you to castle. Okay, queen a6. Looking towards knight d3 ideas. Looking towards bishop b5 ideas. Really stamping down that diagonal. Anyways, I'll stop going off about the French defense, but hey, I hope you enjoyed this video. And just to let y'all know as well, for all of my online privately published courses, I'm talking about the Czech PIRC, I'm talking about the Scandinavian, the modern Scandi, I'm talking about the Hippo, all that. The discount code to get 30% off on any of those courses, or all of them, 30% off. The discount code is CHESS25, only good through the month of September. Thanks for watching this, and I'll see you over in the next one. I wanted to finish this video out by giving a big thanks to Walter, Steve, Rob, that's a lot of Robs, Ray, Roger, and the rest of my Patreon community. I appreciate you guys a ton. If you guys haven't checked out the Patreon before, there are some exclusive benefits that you gain by becoming a member, and I look forward to seeing y'all in the next video. Peace.